My name is Donna Harrison. I was in the Air Force. I retired as a major. I was commissioned in 1981. I went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. I was in the second class of women at that institution. And then I retired. I actually took the early retirement in 1997. So it was, 16 years active duty, and then the 4 years at the academy prior to that. As a matter of fact, my father is Navy, career Navy. He's a Navy pilot. And at the time that I was getting close to graduating from high school is when Congress approved having women attend the service academies, West Point, Annapolis, and Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, I guess, and the Coast Guard Academy, the four of them. My senior year when I graduated, this might, I don't know if it's a good story or bad story, but there were 3 women in my class, and this was in a high school in Maryland. One actually, she got into the Air Force Academy. I got into the prep school, and then a good friend of mine, she got a 4-year ROTC scholarship to Duke, Air Force scholarship, Air Force ROTC. And we actually had a junior ROTC program there at high school. None of us were in it. Normally you apply like starting in August and September going into your senior year, and I didn't find out about it until like December, January. So, and I just happened to fill out the Air Force one first. It was a lot of work, and I'm like, my dad kept the military at home, at work. And so although we were technically military brats and we moved around a fair bit, it was never something where, I didn't say yes, sir, to my father or anything like that. So I wasn't really, it was just kind of like, okay, well, I don't really know what I'm going to do. Sure, I'll apply. And it's like, oh, that's a lot of work. That's like, so fine. And so I actually didn't get into that first class, but my application supposedly, because of, they had already picked that first core of women, so they're like, well, we're still interested in you, and they have a prep school right there on the same campus as the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, and they're like, would you go to the prep school? Which in hindsight was really, really good for me because I was very close to my family, an opportunity to go, get out on my own, but, and it was a military institution, but it wasn't the rigor that the Air Force Academy itself was. And so I did that and then got right into the academy for that second class of women. The Air Force Academy they're training you to become officers to lead people. So if you were in your freshman year, it might be difficult to just push you right out to be an officer and to be called in. Whereas at the prep school, you're basically an airman, so you're going to be taking orders and pretty much doing what needs to be done. I was in political science, but I took mechanical engineering, I took organic chemistry, I took electrical engineering, I took Russian, usually carried anywhere from 18 to 21 credit hours a semester. So it was a very rigorous academic program. So along with your academics, there's also certain expectations for your fitness. You have to pass fitness tests. And then there's the leadership piece of it too, where the academy is approximately 4,000 people, and it's, and that's called a wing. And there's 4 groups under the wing, and then I guess it's probably, I should know this, how many squadrons? There's 10 squadrons in each one of the groups. And so there's leadership, as freshmen, they're called dualies. You don't have a lot of responsibility, you're just kind of being told what to do all the time. And when you become a sophomore, then you're really taking care of the dualies, and then it goes on up the line. So you're getting more and more not information, training as far as becoming a leader with the expectation that obviously when you graduate from the Air Force Academy, you're going to be commissioned as a second lieutenant, and you will be responsible for your airmen or your junior officers as you go up in the ranks. I will say that a lot of folks went into different programs from that. They might go on to pilot training or helicopter training or become a physician or whatever, but generally speaking, that's sort of the route that they were training us for, is to become leaders in the Air Force. From Colorado Springs, I went to the Pentagon, and then from the Pentagon, I went to Australia, and from Australia, I went to Canada, and then from Canada, I went to Texas, and then I got out after that. So kind of bounced around a little bit there. I had always wanted to go to New Zealand, and then I found out that there was a station in Australia, and I was like, you look at the map and you're like, oh, that's close. Well, they're like 2,000 miles apart. It's deceiving. But I loved Australia. I mean, it was just, I was single at the time. We had a rigorous, it was 15 days on, 4 days off. And we worked, shift work, 5 swings, 5 mids, 5 days. And, but it was in a good group of people. We had a pretty neat mission, which if I told you, I'd have to kill you. No, I'm just joking. Got to do a lot of different things, that I'd never done before. When I was in, women couldn't, they just opened up pilot training for women, but you couldn't fly in any combat-related type, certainly aircraft or anything that was going to go in theater anywhere where there was combat. But, that opened up. I kind of have mixed feelings on it, and I think if, depending upon, the topic, and it's not always straight, okay, well, women should be able to do whatever. But on the other hand, too, I don't think a woman should be penalized. Like, for instance, for folks to make it all the way to a 4-star general, there's certain positions and steps that you pretty much have to do that or you'll never get there. Well, if it's at a place where they'll never let women there, then even though you could do this job here, but you didn't do this job here, you can never get there. That doesn't seem to be correct to me. And I think the Air Force is getting better about it. I think the military, at least I hope they are. I don't know. My understanding is the Air Force seemed to be a little more open to at least accepting or embracing is probably too strong a word, or not the correct word, women into their ranks. But especially for like myself, being in that, some of the first groups that were there where the upperclassmen were all men. My second to last job, I had 100 airmen that reported up to me. It was on the maintenance side of the house, and we worked in support of the Army at Fort Hood, which is the largest military base outside of the former Soviet Union. But there were some jobs where I was what was called the executive officer, which is like an administrative assistant to a general. And so I didn't actually write reports on people, but I was involved in a lot of what was going on in that particular unit just because the general was in charge. So I've had numerous jobs when I was in the Air Force. I think for me, it just opened up a lot of opportunities that I would have never considered even trying or even thinking about. I was talking about the school. I wouldn't have taken mechanical engineering. I wouldn't. And I didn't get a great grade in there, but I learned something from it. It's being exposed to so many different ideas and people, and I think that was probably what I appreciated most about it. And I think the second thing for me would be is that it's sort of ingrained in me the idea, I mean, I'm not a religious person, but the idea of service, you know, not just, I mean, obviously you serve in the military, but it must have hit home for me because I just feel like it's important that we, whether you're in the military or not, we serve our communities and we do what we can